they're just trying to say it wasn't the head of a bird. It had this other shape to it. Well, again, they don't know what a Komodo dragon looks like or anything like that. They don't know what pterosaurs are. They don't know any of these things. So they're just trying to use the words that are, descriptors that they are familiar with. That's all they're doing. And when you realize, okay, what are they trying to tell you? You realize this is a pterosaur that's being described. Again, another one of those things that points to the idea of it being the devil, right? Well, it has a devil's tail. Well, the reason we call that shape of a tail, where it's a long tail with like a triangular or diamond-shaped flange on the end, the reason we consider that to be the devil's tail is because it's a dragon's tail. And why do we call it a dragon's tail? Well, literally, it's from heraldic art from the 15th and 16th century of the wyvern. And the thing is, that's literally where that idea of the tail enters into our visual vocabulary.
Of cryptozoology, few creatures loom as large and captivating as dragons. These beasts, with their fearsome appearance and legendary abilities, have captured the imagination of people across cultures and throughout history. From the fire-breathing dragons of European folklore to the serpentine creatures of Eastern mythology, tales of dragons have persisted for millennia. But could there be a kernel of truth to these fascinating stories?
That is that there was a dragon, a small dragon that was killed in France at the late 14th century, and its body was put on display in Paris. People saw it, and it was a wyvern that was seen. And what's really interesting is how wyverns sort of grow and evolve from that moment on. They have spikes at the end of their noses. We see depictions later on where they have 3 fingers on the wing. And they have a long tail with a flange. And again, a wyvern very specifically has 1 pair of wings, 1 pair of legs. They aren't the 4-legged ones that we see in modern fantasy video games, right?
Yeah.
And the reason that's important is that is a pterosaur.
Which I would actually like to point out. I know a lot of video games and movies lately, the past, 10 years or so, maybe 20 years, have started calling things dragons in their media that don't have 4 legs and 2 wings. They're like, well, it'd be more anatomically functional for it to have 2 wings, 2 legs, and you see them. They don't even use the word wyvern anymore.
No, they don't.
Unless it's in like something like Dungeons and Dragons or something that needs a variety of monsters. They just call them all dragons. And so you're starting to see that kind of come back, but almost all of Hollywood, all of entertainment has dropped the flange from the tail.
Yeah.
Something I noticed, cause there's like 5 Dragonheart movies.
Yeah.
The first 2, the dragon has a very distinct flange on the tail.
Yeah, that's also like part of a weapon kind of a thing.
It's like a type of weapon even on that dragon, which was very creative for the movie. All the movies after, no flange.
Yep.
And I find that interesting. The Dragonheart series, for the most part, has kept the 4 legs, 2 wings model.
Right, yeah.
But they've dropped the flange. And it makes you wonder why. Is it just a coincidental design choice across Hollywood and gaming and everything, or I don't know.
Well, you have to remember, people are influenced by what's around them, right? Everyone gets influenced by the zeitgeist of the day. That's just how it is, right? And in the same way, so everyone's trying to be more anatomically correct, right? Yeah. So that's why they're doing it. But the simple fact of the matter is, we have accounts throughout history of what can only be described as living pterosaurs. And when you look at the descriptions, and there are certain themes that just keep popping up, that it really makes it hard to believe that these are just stories that people made up, because there is such consistency in coloration, size, shape, and there's even some things that you would imagine would be contradictory, like a lot of the modern sightings describe a head crest and a long tail with a flange. Well, okay, anyone knows anything about pterosaurs knows, okay, well, hold on, the ones with the crest don't have a long tail. The pteranodon, right, doesn't have a long tail, and that seems to be what they're describing. However, we now know that there are certain types of rhamphoractoid pterosaurs that have that, like Scaphognathus, that may have had a decorative crest on their head. It just wasn't made out of bone
of some kind.
Yeah, and that's all that's being said. But it's very common for younger children to say, when they cite these things, they don't call them pterosaurs, they call them dragons. And that's what I think they actually saw. And they were trying to convey that, but the artist didn't understand what was being told and just made the drawing. Whether he was taking it seriously or not is irrelevant. What he created, then in our cultural zeitgeist, it's like, okay, this is what it looks like, and then we build on those ideas, right? We build with that mythology. We build, as I knock my headset off, we build with those things, and then we as researchers, as a culture, interact with that stuff up here. We're not really interacting with the actual baseline material, what was actually seen, what was said, where these things come from. We interact with how the culture has retranslated and interpreted these ideas and how it's told to us, and we're like, okay, we're going to interact with that. Well, that's not real. So it's like with anything, like, is Bigfoot real? Well, the answer is yes and no, because if you're dealing with what the culture is telling you it is, no, it's not. That's the problem. That is folklore. That's made up. That's cultures interpreting things and taking ideas and moving them in places. Same thing with the Jersey Devil, right? Its culture has simply taken ideas and concepts and folklore and combined them, rearranged them, reimagined them, redefined the story, retranslated it, reinterpreted it, and it's been given to us in a particular way. And the problem is, when we accept that as real, we are already lost, because we're not dealing with a real thing. We're dealing with essentially the pop culture version of an idea.
Yeah. It's like looking for Santa Claus without looking for the history of St. Nicholas.
Correct.
Yeah, because St. Nicholas was a real person.
Yeah.
Santa Claus, who became folklore off of St. Nicholas, is fictional and...
Well, okay, so that's actually a better point. In fact, I like the Santa Claus connection, because it's like looking for the Coca-Cola Santa Claus and assuming that's what you're dealing with. And the problem is, our modern conception of Santa Claus is literally only about 120 years old.
Yeah.
It goes back to the very, 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 very late 1800s, early 1900s. Yeah, Kris Kringle, Santa Claus, like, these are things that you can see evolving over the centuries, and yeah, they're connected to St. Nicholas. But even then, a lot of these ideas don't evolve until really, like, in very late 1800s, early 1900s. And then you have Coca-Cola. Like, the reason we think of him looking that way is because of the Coca-Cola ad design from the early 1900s. For those early 1900s, we're fine. But the problem is, we think, this Santa Claus idea goes back centuries. No, it does not. It does not go back that far. It's really only less than 200 years old, because even you go back 200 years, the idea of Santa Claus or St. Nicholas is not really there. It's not really present. Even our idea of what Christmas is really kind of coming post Charles Dickens. Yeah. This is all very new in reinterpretation of these ideas. So taking that thought, it's like, well, hold on, this is a new idea. These are new interpretations of these thoughts. They don't go back centuries. Well, it's the same thing with the Leeds Devil or the Jersey Devil. We have a lot of this mythology, a lot of this folklore, and then we look at it and say, oh, this is the story that goes back centuries. No, it does not. This is not the story that goes back centuries. This is the story that has evolved over the last 100 years. and popularized over the last 100 years, because there were other variants over the last 100 years where some of these elements aren't even there in these earlier accounts, right? From post 1900. This is a newer idea, and if we interact with it only here, only on these modern conceptions, we're going to miss what's actually occurring. And I think that's a broader problem within the larger, cryptozoological and Fortean community. Is we're dealing with modern ideas, modern interpretations, and assuming that is the classical, that is the historical take on all of this phenomena. It just simply isn't.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in. Just wanted to take a quick break here in the middle of the episode to let you know about our partnership with Dubby Energy. They're a completely jitterless energy drink. They've got lots of great flavors, and if you use promo code MHS Network at checkout, you will save 10% on your order. Again, MHS Network at checkout. Thank you. Now back to the show. For the term dragon in the World Book Encyclopedia Volume 5, 1996 by Carl Lindahl, dragon was the name given to the most terrible monsters of the ancient world. Dragons did not really exist, but most people believed in them. The dragons of legend are strangely like actual creatures that have lived in the past. They are much like the great reptiles which inhabited the earth long before man is supposed to have appeared on the earth. Every country had them in its mythology. In the Encyclopedia Britannica from 1949, the comparison between dinosaurs and dragons was made, noting their astonishing resemblance. Interestingly, the article suggests that those who believed in dragons in the ancient times did so without any knowledge of dinosaurs. However, the truth reveals a fascinating overlap between the two terms in the early days of paleontology, as the terms dinosaur and dragon were used interchangeably by the founding fathers of modern paleontology. Back in 1828, Noah Webster delved into the origins of the word dragon. He traced it back to medieval roots, suggesting its initial meaning as a fiery or flying serpent, possibly associated with shooting meteors. Webster's American Dictionary of the English Language even defines a dragon as a winged serpent prominent in medieval romances. Fast forward to 2004, when a remarkable discovery was made by residents of Sioux City, Iowa during a trip to the Hell Creek Formation in South Dakota. They stumbled upon a dinosaur skull bearing an uncanny resemblance to the legendary dragons of lore. This new species was appropriately named Dracorex hogwartsia, paying homage to the Harry Potter series. With its spiky horns, bumps, and elongated muzzle, the skull provides a glimpse into the mythical creatures that have fascinated humanity for centuries. As we consider ancient tales of dragons, both fictional and potentially rooted in history, these parallels between mythical beasts and the creatures unearthed by science continues to captivate our imagination and cannot be ignored. Isaiah 14:29 says this, "Rejoice not thou, whole Palestina, because the rod of him that smote thee is broken. For out of the serpent's root shall come forth a cockatrice, and his fruit shall be a fiery flying serpent." Could the fiery flying serpent be a pterosaur? The cockatrice itself resembles the wyvern, which also resembles pterosaurs. Wyverns and dragons, pterosaurs and dinosaurs. Each subject has an immense amount of history, not all of which we have been able to cover in this episode. But as we dig deeper and uncover more, we hope the picture this all paints will become clear. But for now, this case file remains open for further investigation. Hey everyone, thank you for watching episode 3 of our new series, Case Files. If you liked this video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe if you haven't already. You can also now become a channel member if you would like to support our content moving forward. Thanks again, and we'll see you later for another case file.